listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia.
Wole, you are listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia. It's the Commanders post-game show, the victorious Commanders post-game show. Ray and Glenn are your hosts. Wole and Mo are out, and we are joined by Douglas McCrary, host of the Big Douglas Show. Bro, the Washington Commanders, the new era of the Washington Commanders, along with the Carson Wentz era, gets started with a 28-22 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fellas, starting with you, Big Doug, what was your initial reaction?
First, they won. They won a ball game, and they were up big, and then down, and then there was, concerns. And we've seen a lot of these Commanders, Washington football team, Redskins, where they're down in the fourth after some adversarial plays and don't get it back. And they marched right back down there and got it back. And I got to tell you, I was pumped.
Glenn.
Yeah, it was good to see, man. It was good to see the first half, the first drive, the first two drives where they came down and marched down the field and were able to score. And you were like, you know what, this is a different. You can see it was a different Washington team, right? Then when the second half came, you get like, okay, this team have reverted back. What happened at halftime, right? Were there no adjustments on the offensive side of the football where you saw Jacksonville came out and make some assessments? And then when you got this team got behind, I know like most fans, fans like, oh, here we go again, right? People saying, here we go again, fourth quarter, they got to make drive. This is why I think Carson Wentz earned his money today, because look at what he had to do. The two last series, he drove down the field and they scored touchdowns. And what was impressive to me was I wasn't 100% sure on Scott Turner. Wole is not here, so we can say God's name, right? So
Wole knows how I feel about that.
Right. I wasn't 100%. I wasn't 100% sure on his play calling, right? It worked out today, right? I'm gonna just say it worked out today. Some play calls were questionable. It worked out today. Deep shot to Terry McLaurin was a good call. There was some calls on that drive that was a little iffy calls, but again, they worked out. When they got backed up to the 5-yard line, he still was aggressive and threw the football. They only ran the ball on that drive, I believe, 3 or 4 times, right? Everything was passing short, and he hit tight ends and he Curtis Samuel. So again, when you have a quarterback like Carson Wentz, and plus he was determined too. I think he was determined after he made those 2 mistakes to get it right.
We'll get there, Glenn. We'll get there. But first, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Just search All Burgundy and Gold. Everything. Also tweet us at ABG_everything and hit us up on our IG at ABG_everything. And like our All Burgundy and Gold Everything Facebook page. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you're not, please subscribe to our All Burgundy and Gold Everything YouTube channel. So let's get right into it. Guys, bigger story today. Carson Wentz throwing for 4 touchdowns, 300-plus yards, or Curtis Samuel, who had his coming out party. And I said right before we came on, he silenced the haters. Bigger story, Curtis Samuel or Carson Wentz today? Doug.
Well, I am not a historian. I wish I was. I wish my memory was that good. It is not. But I don't remember a debut in Washington for the numbers that you are talking about there. That being said, Curtis Samuel was everything they told us he was going to be. So I don't know. It's a tough one. To me, the quarterback play was different than one we've had here in a long time. But the league is salivating over guys like Debo. And to me, that's what he did today, other than the turnover. I mean, they had zero answer for what Samuel did today. Glenn, if you have the stats, how many times did they actually rush the ball today? Here's what I love. The new NFL is about tunnel screens and all of the things that get your playmakers in space, and that's what they call today. And that really, and I'm kind of evading the question here, but that's what made me excited today.
Yeah, they rushed for 28 times for 55 yards, 28 times for 85 yards.
It didn't feel like it.
Yeah, 28 for 95. 28 for 85. Sorry, 10 yards were taken from Dotson when he lost the 10 yards, but it was 28 for 85.
I said prior to the show, I just don't feel like Carson Wentz throwing for 40 times a game is sustainable. Doug, you said the game isn't played like that anymore. This is a passing league now. I have to agree, but if this football team is going to be successful, I think it has to be a balance.
The defense for Jacksonville is nasty. I mean, they're young, but I'm not sure that got enough play. I talked to the lady who covers the Jaguars for the Jaguars, kind of like the Zach Selby role. And she said, they're pumped. They're pumped to have Trayvon Walker. And he showed up big time today. They're pumped. As you know, I'm a dog fan. Tyson Campbell is a stud. I mean, that's a 6'2" guy with range, and he got greets and then he got it. So they had the inside linebacker. They upgraded this year. So I don't know. I think that was a good defense. It was a really good test for Washington that I'm not sure people get. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they realize how good that team could be. They got back-to-back first-round picks, right?
Yep, absolutely. I don't disagree. What's interesting is coming into the game, there were so many questions around Carson Wentz. And I just talked about how this debut, you just said it, Doug, this debut was huge. I think only maybe Griffin debut in New Orleans may be comparable in terms of how big this was. But although he didn't silence all of his critics, I think he definitely has some momentum pushing forward, going to Detroit, and confident. And that's what I wanted. With all of the noise around him, I was hoping that he would have a big game. I thought he would against Jacksonville. Jacksonville gives up a lot of big plays. However, at the same time, it was a closer, tighter game than some anticipated, especially how the game started. What do you think this team needs to clean up heading into week 2, going on the road to Detroit?
Well, I'll jump in if you don't mind, Glenn. To me, it's still the third down. It's still the third down deficiencies that we have on defense. Offensive, to me, the offense, again, I'll give up those turnovers if we're trying to get big plays. And I wish the one he hadn't forced. But defensively, they played well. They did a good job of keeping them to field goals, right? I mean, that's what we talk about in the NFL is just holding them to field goals. Teams, offenses are too good to not imagine you're not going to pick up points. The key is 3 instead of 7. The third down defense just was not good enough today. And it hadn't been good for like 20 years, right?
Terry McLaurin catches that deep touchdown. Go ahead, Glenn. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, actually, defense was pretty. They were 7 for 10. They held Jacksonville. Jacksonville was 3 for 12 on third down. So defense was actually able to get off the field a little bit today, which was pretty good from their aspect. So it's good to see that defense stepped up. Now, what happened on some of those third downs, Doug, which I agree with you, there were some penalties on third down that gave Jacksonville the first down. And so those didn't go against the totals because there was penalties that was given. But most times the Washington defense kind of stepped up a little bit. And we got Wole, who's popping in here from FedEx Field.
Awesome. Hey, listen. Bro, I was going to say Terry McLaurin. Obviously, he got that bomb, right? But we talked about Curtis Samuel and Carson Wentz kind of redemption games for them. What about Antonio Gibson? What about Antonio Gibson? Was this a redemption game for him? Can you hear Wole?
I can't admit I'm in the streets. Let's go. Let's go.
So jealous.
I'm gonna eat crawl Curtis Samuel. Hey, Doug, man. I was about to go on your man, Scott Turner. I was about to do it.
Give him his proppers today.
She was about to do it. We good. Hey, I got to know.
I was 40-something today.
Well, they couldn't hit the question, y'all. But it's all good. All right, man. Was this a redemption game for Antonio Gibson? It shows when you put him in space, when you give him the ball where he can use his size, his athleticism, and he gets downhill. Antonio Gibson's a baller.
They've got to explain to us why they didn't use him like that last year.
That's your boy. That's your boy, Doug.
Yeah, it is. And I think they were too concerned about the limitation of quarterback. There is nothing else that can explain to me why they refused to do it last year. Makes no sense to me. Yeah. They had to have had concern about either protecting him in space or the quarterback not being fast enough or having a strong enough arm to get to the side. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. Also, the line last year was a little bit younger too, and this line is a little bit more experienced, and which was able to give Carson Wentz the time that he needed. So when you saw Antonio Gibson out in space today, he did great. When he had 7 catches for 72 yards, he had 5 rushes for 58 yards. So he was part of the offense and both elements. And then when you throw in the J.D. McKissick like that on a third down, and then when you throw Curtis Samuel, who's also explosive in there, Jacksonville had to be able to cover the speed. And then you saw that with Terry McLaurin running past the corner, that it was difficult. And Carson Wentz was being very consistent, hitting down the check down receivers within the 5 and 7 yard window. He was very consistent with those guys and making those catches and letting those guys run and get in space. And one thing about Antonio Gibson, real quick, he held on to the football today.
Absolutely, that's huge. You always got to note that. But fellas, I have a question for you. Carson Wentz, he has the arm. As Mo texted us during the game, this is the biggest arm Terry has ever played with, and it showed on that touchdown pass. Correct. Then you have the Curtis Samuel effect. Antonio Gibson plays well. You got J.D. McKissick, who is just an absolute beast on third down. How hard will it be to game plan for this Commanders offense moving forward for the opposing teams?
I literally asked my wife in the third quarter, I said, where's McKissick at? Right? Like, I mean, he came back from Buffalo, particularly for his role in this offense. Now he ended up having a good game. Mm-hmm. But I think that just shows you the weapons. Like, I thought Bates was going to have a better game, but he dropped 2 passes. It would have gotten him right around that 45-yard mark that I was talking about the other day. There were some big drops today. I mean, think about how big of the game Carson had today. He could have had another 3 catches for 100 yards on this thing. That being said, they had written off Gibson 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, be happy if you didn't sell off your Gibson fantasy shares, right? Like, people went mad crazy selling off Gibson, and he went ham today.
I mean, he was given opportunity. I mean, with Robinson being out because of the gunshot, Gibson was given a second life, right? He was given a second opportunity because Gibson was going to be behind Robinson. Robinson was going to start, and Gibson was behind. And so because of the opportunity, I don't hate to say it because we all know what happened to Robinson. I don't want to say, but unfortunately, next man up was being Antonio Gibson. He was able to have a new life, and he showed why he could be a good player in this league for a long time. I think one of the things, Ray, you said too, that was key was for the Washington offense was being able to the deep threat teams have to prepare for. Is that they can get Terry McLaurin deep, they can get Dotson deep, right? You can even send Curtis Samuel deep. They have different options and different weapons. But as we said earlier, Carson Wentz really went deep when he had to. Everything else was in that intermediate range. The big play that he missed, I think it was Mines. He threw it a little too high, and Mines missed it. Everything was in that range, but guys was able to get yards after catch, which was huge. Logan Thomas catch the ball, big body, yards after catch. So that was huge for him today. Was the yards after the catch.
Man, you talk about so many comeback stories and just so many questions around this team. Jack Del Rio, did he silence some critics today? Logan Thomas, good to see him back on the field and healthy. It's going to be interesting how this team is perceived after today because, again, I do feel like all of the questions going in, they answered some of them. And the Curtis Samuel effect, I think, was just icing on the cake. So moving forward, again, guys, there's some stuff that you need to clean up. What's most important as you move on to week 2 that this team improves upon? Because I was going to ask you guys, if Robinson is healthy, would the Washington Commanders have ran the ball more today?
Great question. Like we do these, I interview people all the time. One of the things I always love is when they say, hey, great question. Great question. And I don't know. It feels like no. Ron feels like a guy, and same thing with the staff, where like they build a game plan, and if somebody's not in it, then they'll just redo how it works. So I'd like to say no, but boy, I know this. They were really excited about what Brian Robinson added to the game plan. Hard to say. I like to think no. I think this was the plan all along. I think they had seen some people that they could attack. And they did that. They went fast. They went quick. They passed early on downs. Like, they did everything that the modern NFL offense is what you're trying to do. So I give him credit. I don't think they made enough changes at halftime. Like, they were explosive and really had some designs on how to kick some butt in the first quarter. It slowed down in the second, was almost non-existent in the third. But fourth quarter, man, they came out and really stole the game. So give them credit. I think give the defense credit. It was hard to think they played well, but they held them to field goals. So, that's all you really can ask, right?
Guys, I failed to mention Jahan Dotson since we've had this post game has started, and I have to bring him up again. A lot of bright spots today. You have to be excited, and you got to think that this Washington football team will be difficult to game plan for moving forward. What did you think about the rookie's performance, and how can he get better from here?
Well, let's start here.
How can you build?
Olave had a great game today, right? Like, I think this is one of those moments where we will always compare them. Now, you can't fault Brian Robinson for getting shot in the knee, right? So,
nope.
But I mean, think about what they got out of that trade. Dodson had a great game. Mm-hmm. Brian Robinson was the presumed starter until he got hurt. And then what was it? It was either Turner or the safety, Percy Butler, that was gotten out of third pick. So I'll say this: it's not just about what Jahan Dotson did, which you're right, Nikki. He had a hell of a game. You can't have much of a better game. But imagine just how much better they got with that trade. So, I mean, give the front office a little credit too. But give Jahan 2 touchdowns, Was that his first catch went for a touchdown?
His first catch didn't go for a touchdown.
It was the second one. Huh?
I thought it was his second or his third catch that went for a touchdown.
It was second catch. Okay.
For a touchdown. So, what was your confidence level, Doug, coming into the game, and where is it now heading into Detroit?
Good question number 2. You know what's funny? This game, we were even when we were down. The only reason I was worried is because we've been worried for 20 years, right? Like, that's just where we kind of sit as a fan base, is like, oh, here we go again. However, I mean, the quarterback did everything you want a good quarterback to do, right? I mean, he made mistakes and put them aside.
Yes.
He showed off a big arm, while at the same time, I mean, I don't know how much better you could take the check down. That's what they did today, man. This is what football is. Getting yourself set up for big plays by making short passes and tunnel screens and all of the other things. It was progressive today. And you saw a top 10 quarterback with confidence, to me.
Absolutely.
One thing that stood out to me is, too, when we talk about the passing game of the Washington offense, if you look at the averages, everyone had over 10 yards every time they touched the ball was over 10 yards, right? Except for Curtis Samuel, because Samuel but he had 6.9. But again, everybody else was there. What I liked about what was happening with this Commanders offense was that he spread the ball around, right? We talked about the weapons. The ball was spread around to different receivers throughout the day. And so that's one thing when you look at the packages that Turner may bring on the field, you can't determine who is going to get the football. In years past, you say big play, Terry McLaurin, right? It's going big play, they're going to Terry McLaurin. If you look at the last series, right, they didn't hit Terry McLaurin at all. The last series going down the field, Terry McLaurin did not catch a ball. It was to other players that was going down the field. So now the Washington offense has become versatile, right? It's not just one player that we need to guard. We need to guard multiple players, and which gives Washington a deadlier look, because now you got to put linebackers in coverage. You have to put inside backers. You got to look out. So you can't. Then you may end up with Terry McLaurin with a one-on-one. Well, maybe a safety over top or somewhere, but you can hit somebody underneath. So to me, the diversity in the selection. If you look at good teams like what Brady did in years past, how many receivers would catch a ball in the game from Tom Brady? Look at Aaron Rodgers. How many players would catch the ball from Aaron Rodgers? It was they distributed the ball to multiple players, in which I thought that what the offense did great today. Carson Wentz and Scott Turner.
Spread the wealth. I love what we're talking about here. It's a love fest here on All Burgundy Gold Everything with the Urban Sports Scene. Post game, Commanders victory. Defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 28-22. Last thing I want to ask, guys, because again, we just on this positive vibe. Might as well close out on that. The O-line, it was on Twitter all day. Carson has plenty of time to throw the ball. Grade the O-line, how they play today, guys.
Well, let me do this. I have an answer, but Ray, I was hoping to ask you a question before we went out. It doesn't have to be all positive. I'm curious what you saw from that game that needs to be fixed by the time we get to Detroit, or that Detroit gets here, rather.
Well,
I love the love fest, but it ain't perfect. What do you think we need to fix before we get to next Sunday?
So Kendall Fuller, I believe, needs to be addressed. He is the one on defense that's most concerning to me. It's nothing personal to him, but we've been talking about Kendall Fuller the last 2 seasons about just him either not being in the right place or him struggling in coverage or acquiring penalties. And I think that was on full display today. As a matter of fact, Kendall Fuller had 2 bad penalties, if I'm not mistaken, on the same drive.
And people are going to be mad. Sorry to cut you off, Ray.
Oh, no, you're good.
People are going to be mad at Montez Sweat for his production today, which is crazy. But he got a sack and a pressure on those 2 back-to-back Fuller plays you're talking about. That they won't be counted, but he was in there and ready. They got called back. So, I haven't been able to go back and watch the tape, obviously, but that one stuck out to me a good bit.
Absolutely. So what do you do as a coaching staff about Kendall Fuller? That's one. And then number 2, I know, Doug, that we kind of differ in terms of our opinion about running the football, but obvious running downs. Remember, we were saying if they ran on 1st and 10, then that turnover may not have happened where Carson throws that pick in Washington territory and you gave the Jaguars such a short field, which again results in points, and you find yourself behind. Obvious running downs, I think you need to run the football. I just want more balance. Those are the only 2 areas, to be honest.
Obvious passing down, Red. What is an obvious passing? I guess what I'm saying is
running down.
My granddad agrees with you wholeheartedly. But if I can get one of these tunnel screens for 5 yards, I will take that all the time. That's all I'm saying about the new NFL and the modern offense is I don't need to run to get 4. You're talking to me about, if we have this conversation, right, that the statistic people will say, hey, 4 yards a run is great. Well, if I can get 5.5 on a tunnel screen, that's what I want. That's the new NFL. So it's hard to judge. Antonio Gibson had a great game today. And you know how we'll talk about him tomorrow is how many touches he got. Not how many carries, how many touches he got. And that's because touches are more important now. The key to the game is getting your playmakers out in space and letting them do what they do best. And then that allows your quarterback to go deep down the field. So to me, when I watch the college programs, I watch a ton of Georgia, that's what they do too. The key is to pick up 6 yards of play, not 4.
Yeah. If I can go to this thing, we talked about the defense earlier about a spot that could be better. I think defensively, secondary, you talk about going to Detroit. They gave up 260 yards today to Trevor Lawrence, right, in the air. And we know there were some passes that was missed, right? There were some things that were dropped. And the secondary still needs to get a little bit better. The front 4 played a little bit better today. You had Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen actually show up. Allen always shows up, but Deron Payne showed up. Some things that made the block down passes that he had, the tip balls at the line. Even we talk about Montez Sweat, the block ball that he had at the line. I think this front 4 played better, the better first game this year than they did last year. And we saw what happened last year when they went against against the Chargers, right? But they're playing better. And I think one thing that this team has to do, and I know this is Wole's boy, right? Jamin Davis can't cover in space.
55 was terrible too.
Yeah, Jamin Davis as a linebacker cannot cover in space. And looking at the game, when they matched him up with a receiver or somebody in the slot where he had to come out, Jamin Davis was getting burnt in space. And I know that's not going to happen all the time, but if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm trying to figure out how can I get Jamin Davis in space.
And that's why I don't think you're going to see a ton of them. He saw a lot today of was Forster. He was fantastic. And I don't know if that's because they schemed the position that way, because generally everybody that's gotten into that safety nickel, I don't want to even call it Buffalo nickel because I don't think they do either. Let's call it the safety nickel and not the cornerback nickel. And the cornerback nickel was good too, right? St. Jude's had a really good game today, I think. You can see what they want to do. They blitzed a ton today, which they refused to do last year. But I'm with you, Glenn. To me, and again, I say this on the show all the time with people that are super close to the organization, and they spend all their time telling you they don't need a linebacker, and I spend half of all of my shows with people telling me they need to get a linebacker. So, I mean, today was not a great day if you're worried about linebacker because you should still be worried. JP told me on Friday that's why you should expect to see one linebacker more than you do 2 or 3 and tons of safeties on the field. Now, maybe that's a product of the new offense like we're talking about.
So, guys, I asked before, what's your confidence level going in to Detroit? I got a comment from my man George. Washington survived because it would have been a rough week for them had they lost. But the damn Jags shot themselves in the foot to lose it. Wentz was the firearm today. He was also the arsonist. You summed it up well, my brother. I don't know if there was necessarily a sense of urgency, like we can't lose for our fan base, but I tell you, man, that stadium had the highs and the lows of what Carson Wentz did as well. You saw it rocking at some points, and then you saw the depression on the faces at other times. Like Doug said, it's just the history that also creeps into your mind when you're rooting for this football team. And hopefully they put some of that to rest too, and they can move forward. But
you heard the boos, man. You heard the boos today when Carson threw the second interception.
Oh, definitely. The
boos.
That's because you know the Heineke hive is still real.
But you know what, Doug, you said it. You highlighted it. You said he overcame it.
We should give Carson just a couple propers today, or flowers, as the kids say.
I don't know about that. Jacksonville gave you a number of opportunities. Grow some consistency. Glenn, we talk about that on our show all the time, being consistent. But if you're a Washington Commanders fan like you guys are, you should be confident heading into week 2 because of the big arm, because of the weapons on offense, because of the good play of the offensive line, because of the good play of the defensive line. Hopefully you clean up some of those penalties. Kendall Fuller, confidence about a 6 out of 10, George. I think that's about average. I would say probably a 7 for guys like Wole, who came on the show sweaty and excited as if the BCS national championship was
how many people, how the crowd looked, but
I should say the college football playoff. That's what Wole looked like he was attending today out at FedEx.
The crowd on TV looked good. It looked like the lower bowl. I don't know if they move people down because I've been to a lot of events. Sometimes went on the camera side because they move people down. Hey, come on down, sit here, we'll give you a seat. But on TV, the lower bowls looked pretty full. When you got to the upper levels and middle level, it still looked empty. But it looked like it was a better home day crowd from TV perspective that I've seen in a long time.
Doug,
there were a lot of podcasters that got close. I hope they let Wale down there. It'd be bad.
All right, George, we're not talking about that right now, my friend. Listen, I'm used to it. I don't have any expectations. Bryce Young or die. That's what I'm on right now. Doug, what's the title of your show going to be tomorrow, my friend?
Oh, I'm too lazy to come up with titles, and I'm too lazy. That's why I do the live shows now. It'll still be an Overreaction Monday show, you know.
Oh, okay, because it used to be after losses was fun.
Everybody overreacts on Monday, so that's what we'll do tomorrow.
After losses, it was like Misery Monday, you know, that type of stuff. So
there have been many a Misery
Marvelous Monday, maybe, you know.
Maybe I'll switch right to an Optimistic Monday.
There we go. See? That's what I'm talking about.
We'll have George Carmi and Al Gaudy on tomorrow. I'm curious to see how high or how low they are on what we did today.
Oh, send my salutations both ways. But George was really high on Twitter. After that first Carson touchdown, he tweeted out like a meme, like, we got a quarterback now, which is hilarious. It's going to be interesting to see how Carson does throughout the season. But today, hell of a start for him. Guys, Doug, you want to share your show, plug how people can reach you on social media and where they can find your content, bro?
I don't even know what I'm at now. I'm maybe McCray _NFL now. I switched it. There's an at Big Doug show, I think, on Twitter too, and everywhere.
Are you McCray? I called you McCrary, I think.
You did. There is nothing harder than doing the intro to a show. So I didn't say nothing. I just let you roll along with it because I do the intros too, man, and they're awkward all the time.
Oh, that's my fault. You know,
for one day, I was
corrected me.
McCrary for you, but it is McCray.
All right, Doug, McCray, my bad. I get called Roy all the time.
We do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The time differs between when the guests can come on. It's always, Opposition Wednesday, Preview Friday with the beat writers, and then whoever wants to come on Monday, and hopefully their wins, and we're excited about it. Shout out Chris Baker, who usually is on Monday with me, and Big Pooh's out on tour. If you haven't bought the Living and Dreaming in Color album, you should definitely do that. So shout out to homie on his tour right now. And you guys, you're my favorite. I love this one coming on this show. Monday show will be a lot of fun.
Glenn, we're gonna be on this week, bro. And we're gonna be digesting. It's gonna be fun. Wole and Mo, it's gonna be an interesting show considering how last week went. I'm the one that picked the Jaguars. I was the only one on the show to pick the Jaguars, so I'm sure I will catch some hate darts. Listen, I am confident with my pick because I saw what happened where the game Etienne had with that drop. I love him though. He looked good coming back as well. But as Wole would always say,
look, I'll let you go, but you was almost there because again, Jacksonville was 2 for 5 in the red zone. Got to the red zone 5 times, only scored twice. You was almost there.
Listen, though, did you see Wole text us?
They bended but did not break today. That's really what you guys say about the defense.
Yeah, I don't know. The Jaguars kind of broke for you guys. But Wole texted me during the game. It looks like you were right. Like he was throwing the white flag after that second Carson pick, which is hilarious to me. But you know what? A W is a W, and we move on. And again, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Just search All Burgundy and Gold Errrything. That's with 3 R's at ABG_Errrything. That's on Instagram. That's also on Twitter. And also like our All Burgundy and Gold Errrything Facebook page. If you're watching us on YouTube, of course, like this show and hit the subscribe button. Please continue to support us. Continue to support Big Doug McCray. I got it right. I don't know why I said McCray. But you've been listening.
Better to finish strong and start off week every time.
Burgundy and Gold Errrything with the urban sports scene, powered by the urban sports scene on Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM and 1340 AM Hopewell, Virginia. Washington Commanders win on to Detroit.
Hey Ray, real quick.
What's up?
Where's Hopewell, Virginia?
It's near Richmond.
I know, I'm just messing around.
Oh, I was on my way to Charlotte and I rode through Hopewell. I'm like, yeah. Hopewell, here we are, hometown, baby.
I love it. I'm Virginia.
Good show, guys. Good stuff. W's.
Peace.